Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Industrial Real Estate Show. I'm pleased to be joined by a friend of mine who I've got to hang out with and actually go shooting with. We've hung out a few times in other places as well. It's been a real pleasure getting to know him. Ken Ashley, Executive Director with Cushman Wakefield. Ken, thanks so much for joining me on the show.
Chad, it's an honor. We've had a lot of adventures together. We took a ferry in New York, and you showed me a historic industrial building in New York. So it was a great and fun tour, and then our hunting escapades, and more to come.
Oh, I'm looking very much forward to it. The shooting at the Burj was something I'll never forget. And yeah, we looked at a former torpedo factory that was turned into a
Mhm.
co-working. And then we got to do a boat ride after. I remember those vividly, and I'm sure we'll have many more coming up. And we're going to talk about one of them in particular in a bit. The summit that you're up. It'll be the third one, or it'll be the fourth one by now.
Actually, it's next year will be the sixth CREI Summit.
Wow. Well, we
Yeah,
will jump into that in more detail, and including where it is. You've already announced where it will be and the dates, so we'll talk about that in a bit. But
sure.
as most podcasts start off, let's hear a little bit more about your career. I've heard the story, and I'm sure other people would love to hear it as well. So if you could just talk about your journey on what took you to where you are today.
Yeah, so quick origin story. I've been practicing commercial real estate for 30 years. If I keep practicing, maybe one day we'll get there. But I learned about tenant rep from a friend of mine named Brad Smith, who I recognize today, and I'm so thankful we're friends. But it's a very opaque industry, and it's so opaque that I actually wrote a book, which will be coming out soon, called The Real Estate Prescription. And that's in three segments. The describes our industry, how to go from sitting on your couch watching Netflix to getting hired, and then once you get hired, how to be successful. So hopefully that's before Christmas this year in 25. We'll see. But my story is once I learned about this business, I knew it was for me because a lot of reasons, but one of them is I was in a family business where I had a high cost of goods sold. In this business, the cost of goods sold is paying your broker and buying steak dinners. And once you're done with that and you've covered your professional fees to SIOR and CCIM and all of those kinds of things, there really is no cost of goods sold. It's all about managing your time. So I talked to 13 different firms, and I got a offer to come to Cushman Wakefield, which is a place I always wanted to work. Was thrilled, went home and had a much too long a conversation with my wonderful wife, Karen. And at the end, when I finally shut up, she said, "Well, I have some news too." And I thought we were going to talk about the social plans for the weekend. And she said, "I'm pregnant." So I'd taken a no income, never wanted a draw, which is a loan against future commissions. So I had no income. So I immediately started valeting cars at night. I had all these side jobs, and her pregnancy was proceeding nicely, but I was not. 8 months into this, I had not made a bean. And laying in bed and experiencing the self doubt and anxiety is something I'll never forget. It was one of the most difficult parts of my life. And I almost quit. I walked in to quit, but a great guy named Mike Elting talked me into staying because he explained to me the concept of sunk cost and how much it would take to replace this time with a salary. And about 2 weeks later, a deal I didn't expect to close closed. And it was a joyous occasion. We took some of those dollars from that first commission check and we bought the bed frame we sleep into this very day. And every morning I wake up and I'm thankful.
That is very cool. And so how long have you been in the business now? You mentioned it, but how long
Yeah.
is it?
So, yeah, I've been a tenant rep for 30 years and I started with long black hair. You see how that worked out. And, but it really is the best business in the world. And I know I watch you and I know you've got a big audience, Chad, and a lot of them are people who maybe want to get into our business or newer in our business. And I want to encourage you that when you get over that hump, we could talk more about that. But there's this thing called a flywheel. And a flywheel is true for your financial success and it's true for your business success. And as you know, in manufacturing, they have this thing called a flywheel. It's really heavy. And if you picture it, a big concrete wheel that's horizontal, and you've got either machines or people, workers pushing that, and they're really struggling to get it going. But once it gets going, and once it gets going fast, it's almost impossible to stop. And that is the analogy for your real estate career.
I think it's so funny how, as brokers, we love analogies and metaphors, and because as you were saying, that one that I've used numerous times when I'm talking to newer brokers is that you've got to picture it as a rocket ship taking off the ground. It takes so much energy and effort and coordination, and everything has to go right. And one thing goes wrong, it could derail the whole thing. But once you get it into orbit and it's flying in space, same as a flywheel, it's impossible to stop. It's just moving. It's already done the work. So that first 3 to 5 years is trying to get everything off the ground. And it's a cheesy analogy. I like the flywheel one better because it's not cheesy, but I've always used the rocket one. So
Yeah,
it's funny how the flywheel, we like to use those analogies. what
indeed.
what would you say now, having gone through a few real estate cycles and having
Yeah.
seen the market change? And I think a lot of people are looking at AI right now and saying, well, AI could be such a displacing new technology that could alter the way that people are doing business of all types. Having gone through different cycles and having seen different technologies come. I started in 2005 where we were still sending faxes. So that I haven't seen a fax in a long time now. Things have changed rapidly in 20 years. With you having even more experience than that, how do you look at the market right now? As a opportunity, or is it different this time? If someone were getting into it, or perhaps they just got into the industry, how does this feel compared to other cycles that you've gone through, or perhaps even other technological disruptions?
hmm Well, first talking about the real estate cycle. So there are two things to realize. First of all, there's a thing called recency bias. So when we are in a situation as a human being, everything seems to go through that lens. And if it's a down market, everything looks like a down market. To the carpenter with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. There's another analogy. So recency bias is a part of it. Second, most pundits, including our friends at the Wall Street Journal and others, are writing rear-looking articles. So they're consuming brokerage reports, and they're looking at information that is frankly old. And the good news about doing what you and I do and your listeners do is we're on the front lines, and we can see trends as they're evolving and as they're starting. So that's number one. Number two, there is a giant opportunity for people who either new in the business or want to get in the business for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you think about a cycle, I mean, it would be great to get in 2019 when everybody's making a fortune, but then you would have had to gone through the downside of COVID and everything that's happened since. But if you get in at the bottom, and it's my belief from a capital markets perspective that the office market bottomed in February this year. If you get in at the bottom, guess what? You get to ride the wave up. And the second thing is there are a lot of people in this industry that are going to retire during the next 5, certainly 8 and 10 years. So while now it may look foreboding because there are people who have connections and capital and experience that you do not, you will develop all those things. And I think there's a giant opportunity in the near term to provide service when others leave the industry. So there's definitely a great thing that's happening in our industry. We need young people. Corporate America needs young people. We need people with ambition, with smarts, and with courage to join this industry because it's the best job in the world.
I've said that same thing as well. I can't think of another job that I would have had over the last 20 years that I would have enjoyed as much as being a broker. I think it is the best job. I think it is a wonderful opportunity. If you're a new agent right now, and
Mm.
by the way, was your first son, was that Jonathan? Was that
Yes.
your first son? So
Yeah.
he was the one that sparked the drive to say, well, we need to start getting some deals done now. And Jonathan is how old?
Yeah. So Jonathan is 29 now.
29. So let's back up even a little bit. If he was, let's say, 22, just coming out of college,
hmm
what advice would you give him in terms of finding the right brokerage to join? And just before you
Sure.
answer that, I think a little bit
hmm
of context for
hmm
anyone that's recently gone through this or is looking at it is that you'll be inundated with options. There's big, large corporations, Cushman, CB, JLL. There's these really big, large brokerages, and then you might have regional brokerages which operate just out of one area. It could be Texas, as an example. Then you'll have smaller firms and sometimes even boutique firms, which might just be a one-off office that focuses on a very niche area. Having all of that in there, how does a new broker, identify what's the best fit for them?
Well, the old saying, "Real estate is local," is where you got to start because it depends on where you live. If you live in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, or you live in a small community, it's fine. You can make a nice living in commercial real estate, but quite certain you're going to start with a small local firm where there is focus. I think the second element is the brokerage is the hobby horse of how you get to where you're trying to get in terms of your professional success and your financial success. But if you go one layer deeper, you've got to find the right mentor. All the resources in the world at the big firms don't matter if you don't have someone that's guiding you on this journey. So as you would interview, that's really, and I talk in the book about the interview process and how to establish mentorship. So I think that's more important. Finding someone that will really invest in you and help make you successful and a high touch experience is critical. But then to get to your question, Chad, here's the trade off. With a smaller firm, it might be more agile. They might have interesting relationships. You get better splits. But of course, with better splits, the dynamic is less resources. With a larger firm, you're going to have market splits that are probably not as attractive, but you get more resources. So the way I think about it is there's a buffet of things that are offered, and I'll explain them in a second here at Cushman Wakefield. And my job is to fully deploy those resources because at the end of the day, it's really not the split that matters, it's your production. And if you can take your production on an annual basis, which includes your share with the broker, from 1 million to 2 million or 2 million to 3 million, obviously that is going to have a substantial impact on you and your family. Your success blesses others after all. So what are the resources? Among them are the ability to have a research department that can do and write reports for you on what's going on in the market, the ability to have someone that can pull surveys for you, and a marketing team that can help you put together pitches and presentations and market updates. Those are three really important resources. There are plenty of others: incentives, negotiation, all kinds of specialties that can occur. And then the last thing I would say is you got to think about the kind of transactions you want to do. If you're back with our friends in Gatlinburg, you're not going to be doing probably multi-market, very complex, huge assignments. But that's okay. You can make a great living doing 5,000 square foot deals. I've got plenty of friends that do. But if you talk to your mentor and you talk to people in your team, and let's say you are in a major city like Atlanta or New York or Los Angeles at all, then you might think about a firm that you can grow into and have the ability to transact on multiple different ways with multiple different clients. And we can talk more about that, but I do a lot more than just office tenant rep here at Cushman and Wakefield, and I love that I can go down the hall and get experts in multiple areas.
Yeah, that is a big advantage on that. I did want to lead into the mentorship side because this is a question I get asked often: is how do you find the right mentor? And I'll share a little bit of what I tell people after you chime in. But that is a great question because you can go to a company and they can give you all the resources, but if you don't have some direction on where you want to go with it, then those resources are essentially unhelpful. So when someone's looking to join a brokerage and they think it's a fit culturally and they like the corporate vision and they like the way that it's laid out and they can see it, but they need to tie themselves to a mentor. And a lot of these are younger kids. Guy or girl just comes out of university
Yep.
and they're just looking for a job, and they don't think that they're in a position to say, well, who's going to be my mentor and what's their track record and what's their success and who else have they successfully mentored. They're just saying, can you please hire me? I'm just looking for a job. how
Mhm.
how can they break through that? Perhaps it's an apprehension, perhaps it's just not knowing that these are questions that you should ask. How can
Hmm.
you break through and actually find a good mentor when you're dealing with all those pressures as a new person in the workforce?
Excellent question. So before we get there, I just want to say there's a non-negotiable in this business, and that is the fire in your belly. I know I wake up unemployed every morning. I have for 30 years. I haven't had a paycheck. I've had a commission come in. It's lumpy cash flow. You know, you get a big deal, you get a big fee. You got to have to be responsible for managing your money. And so the non negotiable is you are responsible for your success. And you've got to get over that wall like the Marine in basic training. It is up to you. So you have to accept personal responsibility for your personal success. Then, once you've gone through the process of evaluating brokerages, and we can talk about how to get meetings with the brokerages, you're going to find someone, and maybe the managing principal or the person in charge of the brokerage says, I'd like you to meet with Chad Griffiths. He's a very successful performer in our community and has successfully mentored other people, number one. Number two, Chad is looking to grow his team. So Chad not only has demonstrated in the past that he's successful at mentoring, but he has capacity. And then number three, you've got to have a conversation with a potential mentor to understand their philosophy, because this is a blacksmith trade. And what that means is a lot of how we learn this is by doing it. And when I joined, the thing I wanted to do most in the world is sit in my senior broker's office and just listen to him talk. I wanted to hear the dynamics of the conversation with the client. I wanted to see how he presented surveys. Some of these things I still use to this very day that weren't taught in college and can't be taught in college because this is a professional organization. Think of it like going through law school and then you go to the law firm and you learn, a specialty, your environmental law. Well, of course, you've got to sit in with the environmental lawyer. And then I think the last thing is if you make a decision to go to the firm and to work with the great broker, Chad Griffiths, then get a commitment. That's what people are afraid to ask for, but you have to close the transaction. So here's what it looks like. Chad, I'd love to work with you. I'd love to help you become more successful and make more money. This is what I'm going to focus on. And you both agree, I'm going to focus on this submarket. I'm going to do this thing to either transact or more likely to generate business for the team. But here's what I ask in return. Can we commit to every Thursday from 2:15 to 2:45 that you will sit down with me without fail? And if you have to schedule it, then we will reschedule and replace that time. I don't care if it's Saturday morning, but I need 30 minutes a week. I'll come up with an agenda. I'll come with real questions. We're not just chewing the cud, but I request that you help and invest in me and my development. And you can be more specific. You can work on a plan. There are plenty of ways to generate a sort of a course of what you'll learn. And maybe we can talk about that, about what's important in year one. But you have to get a commitment. Oh, my light went off here, from your mentor to invest in you is the answer.
Yeah, well said, and I agree with every point that you made. That to me is one thing that I'd recommend that you said is have they trained somebody else successfully? Because if they haven't, if they're and there's a lot of brokers out there who have had numerous people working under them, and they've either left the business or they just failed or they're unhappy or they're not progressing as much as they want. There's plenty of brokers out there. There's also plenty of brokers out there who have successfully trained other people in the office, and you'll know them. You'll know because they'll have a desire to want to help other people succeed, as opposed to how can they have somebody help them out personally. Their desire is to help that next wave of people come out, and you'll see it's very genuine when someone wants to see you succeed versus someone having very narrow self-interest. So I do completely agree with that. Fire in the belly you mentioned is key, and I couldn't agree with that more. Is that you need to have that unwavering desire to want to win at anything you need to do to be able to climb that wall as a Marine. What else makes a good broker?
Yeah. Yeah, appreciate the question. So in year one, uh, first of all, I want to say that even if you've made a commitment with this broker who's going to mentor you, I want to ease things for you. You're not making a commitment for 20 years. Now, you probably are going to need to give it 1, 2, 3 years of your time to see if it makes sense and you like it. But listen, 9 months in, if you don't like what you were doing, it is okay. This is 2025, you can make the decision to look around and figure out something else. So take some pressure off yourself. A lot of times young people think that they're making the commitment for 30 years, which worked out for me, but does not need to be the case for you. So let's talk about, from a tenant rep's perspective, what's important. The riches are in the niches. So you're going to pick a market, pick a submarket in conjunction with your broker or your managing principal. And then you're going to do a few things. Number one, you're going to become the expert. If you're farming a market, and what does that mean? Well, if you're choosing office product, I know you're an industrial broker and I do plenty of industrial work, but office buildings in most major markets are open Saturday mornings from either 8 or 9 to noon. And you've got to identify every single significant office building and create a check sheet. And you're going to, however you learn is up to you. If you want to create a document, it can be electronic, it can be in paper, but I want you to go to each of those buildings. So let's just use office as the paradigm for a second. Who owns the building? What is the capital stack, which is who's the equity and who's the debt? And importantly, on the debt, if you can figure out when it matures, that's a handy thing to know. Then you're going to look at the floor plate size, which means how big are each of the floors, and what are the amenities? Who are the major tenants in the building? And the reason you go there is you can figure out how to park and how to show the building. You park in the broker spot, walk into the building as if you're showing the building, and imagine yourself with a client in tow. That de-stresses and de-risks when you are asked to do your very first tour, which is a surprisingly challenging experience. And a tour is taking someone who is a corporate user on a literal tour of office options to show them what they look like. So if you can begin to learn the buildings, then the second thing I'd like you to do is to meet with an architect and ask him or her about what's going on. How do they build these buildings? What's a plenum? What are the, what's in industrial? What's ESFR? What are some of the technical terms that you think a tenant would need to know? And then number three, meet with a contractor to determine how they build buildings, how they build the interior, what are the long lead time items, what are the problems, what are the issues. And then number four, meet with the finance team and or look at other financial analyses, because your job is really not that complex. So if you're working for a corporate user, whether it's office, industrial, or any other kind of product, your job is to help narrow down. You do a diagnostic, you listen to what their business problem is, and you're helping to solve the business problem with a real estate solution. You don't present every building in the market. You use your professional expertise or your team's expertise to delimit the number of buildings. And then once they've made a tour, you want to present options in what's called an executive dashboard. What is the total cost of occupancy for each of these options? So if you can do those handful of things, and then there's one more, you got to read the market reports. So in your submarket, if our friend Bob Knackel always says, when people ask you an opinion on the market, don't give them an adjective, give them statistics. My market is 38% vacant. There were this many deals done. This was the absorption, which means how much space was leased this last quarter. So if you will begin to build your confidence and your expertise and your usefulness, not only to your senior broker, but to your client when you go through that education process.
I think that is such a wonderful roadmap that if anyone listening to this is thinking, what do I need to do in year one? If you embrace what you just said, Ken, and take that on and commit to becoming an expert, meeting with an architect, meeting with the finance team, meeting with a contractor, reading market reports, touring properties, going ahead of time, I think is such a brilliant tip as well, because that takes out the stress of where do I park? How do I get there? Is there road construction? Do I have to take a detour? And am I going to be embarrassed because I go to the wrong address because I didn't plan this in advance? I think all these things that you can do are all preparing you to go into battle. And I think that if you take that in mentality, it'd be very, very hard to not become an expert within that first year, where you understand the market, you understand the tenant or the landlord profile, you understand what people want. I think that's such a wonderful way of doing it. And that's what I say to people as well, and not as eloquently as you've described it, but two lanes. You need to become an expert in your market, because I think that that's one of the services that we provide that no one else can, is that we're providing real-time market information, and we're experts in that space. The second thing that I always tell people is that you need to, once you have that knowledge and you have that information, you need to tell it to everybody that you possibly can. You need to tell people what you know, how it can help them, and that's how you're going to actually start turning your knowledge into business, by helping people and serving them with that knowledge that you have. So switching gears,
Mhm.
on the business development side,
Yep.
how do you recommend that people, now they've taken everything that you've done, they have to start getting clients now? That's the other thing, is you got to start actually doing the deals. How
All
do you
right.
recommend that people start going down that road?
Absolutely. So I remember well being a young person in the business, and I was very intimidated to talk to corporate executives. So I acknowledge that fear. It's okay to have that fear. You're 25 to 30, and these executives are 55-year-old folks. It's intimidating. However, you do have a couple of advantages that are significant. Kyle and Sarah made a great TikTok 2 days ago where he talked about the idea that you as a young person have an advantage because you can use this thing called an iPhone. You're not afraid to make a video. You're not afraid to communicate differently and use your digital tools, which I know we'll talk more about. So that's number one. Number two, I have what I call the ask for advice approach. It's kind of what we're really doing in this podcast. What do people in their 50s like to do? Give advice. So if you were to meet with an executive and you can find a purchase point, the easiest one is, hey, Mr. Smith or Miss Smith, this is Ken Ashley. I just want to be honest with you. I'm new at Cushman and Wakefield, and I'm trying to learn my market, my list. I wonder if we could have a 30-minute coffee, and I can send you some dates. We'll talk about the setting the meeting in a second, and I can send you some dates. I just want to learn how you've been successful in your career. I mean, goodness, not every executive is going to say yes, but a lot of people recognize the importance of investing in young people and sitting down and having a 30-minute coffee, which you and I do all the time, Chad, with young people. A lot of people will say yes to that. And then you can begin the relationship with them investing in you as opposed to you asking something for them. And then pivoting a little bit to talk about what I call the cognitive burden of the meeting. I want to give you the perspective of the executive. So executives and decision makers are under intense scrutiny every day. They have to make a lot of decisions, and everyone is asking for something from them: budget approval, time, promotion. Everybody is on the ask. They're on the take, so they're net takers. And I think we as tenant rep brokers have made the mistake for years of violating them by asking for more. Can I have your lease? Can I have a meeting? Can I represent you? Can I earn a fee? Instead, let's flip the script. Number one, when you're trying to set a meeting, the cognitive burden means I'm a decision maker, I'm busy. I want to make the smallest yes possible, smallest decision possible. So here's how I would ask for a meeting. Hey, Mr. Smith, this is Ken Ashley with Cushman and Wakefield. I know that you're an important person in this segment. Would it be okay if I sent some times for us to have a 20-minute coffee? You could narrow the time a comfortable distance out, or may I reach out to your EA? So to deconstruct that, you didn't ask for the meeting. You asked permission to send them some times for a meeting a comfortable distance out. So as the decision maker, I feel that's a smaller yes, because I actually haven't committed to meet with you. I just said, yeah, kid, send me some times. Or yes, you can talk to my assistant. So minimize the ask, follow up, and reach out to that EA, even if the executive doesn't respond, to say, listen, here's what I'm up to, and I'd like to set a meeting. So manage the cognitive burden with the client, and please don't go in and ask for the net take. Ask for the smallest yes possible.
Great tip on that. Let's perhaps switch over to the marketing side as well, because I
Yep.
think that this is where you've really carved out a great profile on social media as being perhaps the king of commercial real estate social media. But while Bob's maybe giving you a run for his number right now, Bob is pretty special what he's doing as well. But the two of you are royalty in this regard. And
I don't know
I've
about
always
that.
looked at brokerage as you've got to have a full team out there. So continuing on with the analogies, you can't win a football game if you only have 6 people on the field. You're just not going to be able to. So I think that to be an effective broker, you need to be putting the right player in the right position, and you need to have everybody out there. I look at social media as one player on the team. I don't
Yep.
think that replaces old school prospecting. I don't think that replaces any other element of the business. I think social media is just one player on the game, and that one player can actually make a significant difference. If you think of perhaps that player is the quarterback, or perhaps that player is the wide receiver, that player can be a very effective person, but it is still just one player on the team. But I think it's becoming increasingly more important. You've you've dove into social media huge. Why? Let's start there. Why?
Yeah. Well, I have a degree in marketing. I think about it a lot. And there are two key critical elements to business development. One of them is sales, and sales is speaking and listening with the intent to convince. And if you're a broker and that's not in your skill set, maybe it would be good to find another area to focus on. But marketing is a lot harder. Marketing is quite simply what they think about you before they walk in the room. Marketing builds trust in you as an individual. It builds the idea that you're capable, that you're credible before you walk in the room. So the reason I got involved in social media was the downturn of 2009. And a lot of folks listening to this were in school or very young at that time, but it was another serious downturn. And I had 4 young kids who were very hungry and expensive, and we had a lot of life expenses at that time. And I remember my wonderful wife Karen and I sitting down, and she was very distraught, which she's never. She's the rock of our relationship, because cash flow was wobbly, and I will never let that happen again. But we let debt creep up, and so I had 2 decisions. There were only 2 paths. You can't valet park your way out of mid-career expenses. The only thing you can do is either significantly downsize your life expenses, which would have been selling a house and doing some extraordinary things to rein back our lifestyle, or I had to be successful. And so I started thinking about option number 2 as the way out. And social media was then beginning to evolve. And there was our mutual friend, Coy Davidson, was the OG of Twitter. He's at Colliers. In the 30 minutes, I'll never forget the gift that he gave me. That's just so amazing. He took a call with a competitor that he'd never met and described how he did his social media marketing. And so I adopted that, and I've been active in Twitter since 2009. It's not the only social media, but it is a social media. And I continue to get affirmation. I had lunch with a major public company CFO a few weeks ago. And at the end of lunch, to my great surprise, he said, "Hey, man, I read your X account. Good work. Keep it up." I was stunned. I had no idea. There are lurkers out there that you, Chad, and I have talked about before. But I also want to be clear, I'm not proselytizing for social media. I do think that you need to market in your community. Other ways to market can include entertaining people, taking them to do things that they like, concerts, golf, shooting, whatever you want to do. You can write, try to get earned media in the paper. You can write op-eds. You can give speeches at the local Kiwanis or other service clubs. You can be involved in not-for-profit boards. All of those things help extend your brand. So I want to be very clear here that if you're listening to me and listening to this, social media is not a vending machine. You don't send out a tweet and then get a deal. Not usually. But it is one, to your point, it is one plank in the platform of building a marketing strategy. And what happens is, as your reputation improves in your marketplace, people begin to trust you more and more. And the question I always ask is, what do you call the person that graduates last in medical school?
Doctor.
Doctor. So what the executive is trying to do, quite simply, is filter out the last place graduates in medical school so that he or she can hire someone. And they're trying to avoid a CLM, a career limiting move. A real estate deal is a big deal internally. It's a big transaction. It's expensive. It's the second biggest cost after labor. And executives, a lot of them operate with FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So they're trying to find the Chad Griffiths of their market that they know can execute, that they trust in, they know will have their back, will take the call on Saturday morning, will hustle, and will work hard to get the right deal done. That's what this is all about. And marketing helps de-risk you because if they know who you are before you walk in the room, that's half the battle.
Well said. I mean, that alone is gold nuggets of wisdom on what someone should be taking for this. One question I get asked all the time as well, and I'm sure you have too, is what do you post? How do you convince a potential decision maker or somebody that you're trying to win over that you
Sure.
are that expert? What do you post?
Yeah, that's such a heads up question because so here's quite simply here's my approach. I think about the eyeballs that are consuming my content from a business perspective. What I imagine in my mind's eye is this, and whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. It's how it guides what I'll say. I imagine there's a CFO, not the one I had lunch with, but that's cool, who is reading my content, and then he or she is going to stand up from the desk, walk into the boardroom, and they're going to get asked a question of what's happening in commercial real estate in this vertical or this city or this area. And they're going to say, oh, I just read this. Here's what this guy, Ken Ashley, was saying. And then below that is what I call the four corners. So the four corners govern what I will and won't talk about online. The four corners for me, and they could be different for you, for our macro commercial real estate in the United States, because I do business all over the United States and Canada. The second is tech, because everybody wants to improve their tech stack. We're all interested in tech. Number three is what I call management science. So Harvard Magazine or CFO.com, how do I become a better leader? How do I achieve a better culture? How do I achieve my goals and objectives as an executive? And then finally, anything positive. So if a firefighter rescues a kid in any city in America, that's worth talking about. If there's someone had great success, that's worth talking about. So what is not in the four corners? Art, science, politics, history, a lot of fascinating things that we all think about and care about. But in order to be relevant, in order to accomplish your marketing message, you have to focus and think about the eyeballs first and then decide what is your four corners. And I'll asterisk that by saying I do permission myself to talk about the Georgia Bulldogs, but that's a little personal privilege.
Well, and there is an element of showing who you are that
Right.
resonates with people, especially if, and it can be a college football, it can be your favorite golfer, it can be your favorite movie star, and even if that's someone that someone disagrees with, for the most part, it's a healthy ribbing. You might have somebody that hates the Bulldogs because their team is their
Right.
rival.
Right.
The most people are not going to go into the bowels of negativity and make it personal. It's going to be a friendly rivalry. So I think that does have merit. One thing that, if I could just add on to that as well, I think those four corners are a wonderful way of describing a content strategy. I would also add on, have another bucket of things that you'll just refuse to talk about.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it, politics, art probably isn't contentious. There's probably people out there that is their personal element they can talk about. But I think personally, what I strive to do is avoid any negativity on social media. And I'm human. I've made mistakes. I've made posts that I've regretted and had to delete. But I really strive to avoid putting anything negative online. Because there's enough negativity out there already. You can open any platform and you'll find negativity, and you'll find people arguing with strangers and name calling. And I think that's antithetical to what I'm personally trying to accomplish on social media, where I want to share positivity, as you mentioned. And personally, I've with Twitter anyways, I've even my profile says singularly obsessed with industrial real estate. I try to only post about social or about industrial real estate now. I've actually gone away from trying to post anything personal or anything on that for better or for worse. I don't know if that's the right strategy or not, but I try to avoid anything negative and I try to avoid anything controversial, because I think that as soon as you do that, you're opening yourself up for attack. You're opening yourself up for controversy, and I think that's personally not what I'm trying to accomplish on social media. How can somebody do both? Have you found that? Have you found someone that can do both? Like Nick Huber, who we both know and we've hung out with a
Mhm.
number of times. He's effectively done both. Is that worth it from your regard? Is that something that someone should lean into?
Well, Nick's very talented, super smart, and had
Very,
great
very talented.
success. So I'm not going to argue with Nick's model at all. But Nick's model is very different. Nick works for however many companies he has these days. At one point, it was 9. He controls those companies, and he is trying to get eyeballs to his companies. So he has his approach to generating interest. And I respect it highly, but my approach is very different. I agree with you on the negativity issue. So so-called rage baiting is not for me, but I don't at all dispel what Nick is doing. It's working. I would say this: a lot of people that I talk to are concerned about creating a social media presence because they think that they're going to be attacked for what they said, or somehow they're going to have their personal security violated. I do think it's like walking down the street in any urban city in North America. You need to be aware of where you are and don't post pictures that you shouldn't. I mean, I'll never post a picture of my home, for example. And I try to be sensitive about saying where I am because if I'm out of town, obvious reasons, right? But I want to put your mind at ease, and we talked about this at CREI Summit on the stage, that if someone attacks, which happens, there are trolls, you generally just ignore it and it goes away. I am, it would be highly unusual if there was a sustained attack against you for no purpose, for no reason. The water's pretty safe today, and there is a community, the Retweet community, or in general the CREI Summit community, that if you become part of that community, I mean, kind of one for all for one, will defend each other, assuming your conduct is reasonable and appropriate. So I think the risk reward is there for using, if you choose to use a channel in social media to help your business, the risk reward is worth it.
I've even taken this a little bit further recently as well. And anytime there's negativity, I've actually leaned into it. And I'm not afraid of the negativity for this one reason is if you look at some really smart, powerful, confident people, when they get negativity, they're not going into the comments and saying, "Oh, well, look at your profile picture. You look like a loser." They're not saying any of that. If anything, they're laughing at it and they're like, "Yeah, you know what? Uh, I do have goofy looking hair, or my shirt does suck." And when I read them do that, I'm like, that is such a great response because they're taking this hate that's coming at them and they're just deflecting it off. And my respect for them actually goes up. So I think that if somebody does get some hate, just lean into it because not only are people following what you post, people are following what you reply. And maybe the easiest is to just ignore it. And I think that that's the second best thing that you can do. The worst thing you can do is defend yourself and get into an
Yeah,
argument,
yeah,
into a fight.
yeah.
But I think if you get a bad comment, just acknowledge it. Like my shirt probably is pretty ugly. It's got flowers on it. If someone wants to make fun of my shirt right now, it is. It probably is an ugly shirt. But
It's
but
very
I think.
nice.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah,
think ego is the worst thing that can happen on social media.
yeah, and
I
anger. Yeah,
ego and anger, and as soon as that creeps in, I think someone is wise to just say, okay, my I don't have the emotional control to actually respond to this right now, so I'm just going to close my computer and we'll pick this up another time. But it's all just random people out there. No, there's no successful person that's going on and trolling you. There's nobody that the CEO of a company is not going to come in and make fun of my shirt or make fun of my face.
hmm,
They're just not.
right.
It's going to be some anonymous random troll. So don't get into fights with people that you have no idea who they are. It's just that's an unwinnable fight. If anything, yeah, my face is, I do have I am a fat, I have a fat face and ugly hair and an ugly shirt. You're right.
All
You
right.
got me. What else? What else do you got? So
Right.
that's kind of where I'm trying to head to is, and I'm not perfect. I probably take things personally too often as well, but I think that people are watching your posts and they're also watching your replies. So be just as diligent on any replies that you make as to the original content that you make as well. Oh, sorry, you're gonna add something on?
I was just going to first of all, I want to compliment you. The hilarious way you handle the very few negative book reviews you've gotten is awesome. I love how you turn it around, and I chuckle every time I see it. And my appreciation for you grows with those posts. To your point, and I want to share something that Bob Knackle shared. It was brilliant. So he said, you go to dinner at a steakhouse, and you get the steak, you get the potato, you get maybe a vegetable, and then they put parsley on your plate. Nobody cares about the parsley. Nobody touches the parsley. They're all into the other stuff, and that's the same with a negative comment. Just forget the parsley. It move on with life.
That is a great analogy. I feel like I've taken a lot of great analogies from this that I'm going to be adding into my personal repertoire.
Yeah.
So thanks for that one. Tell me about CREI Summit. 6 years. I didn't realize it's been that long now, which I am honored to be somewhat part of that community, although I haven't
Yeah,
made it to an event
totally.
yet. I've got many friends that go, and I've heard nothing but good, glowing reviews from it. So for me being a bit of a layman on it, having not been to an event, tell me more about it.
Yeah, so I'm excited about it. It started as a COVID passion project, and what we started to realize early in COVID is the way we market ourselves. To our earlier conversation was going to change because, of course, golf clubs and dinners and grip and grin wasn't available. We couldn't go to cocktail parties, and so it caused me to think deeply about how we use what we now call digital tools more than just social media. And what I began to realize is that we have the most powerful tools in human history. They're largely free. We can get a global audience, but there's no way to go to learn to use them. And if you go to take a college course, that's really not focused on commercial real estate and what we do and how we sell, which is a long, complex sales process. And if you go to the wonderful marketing teams, I mean, I love my marketers here at Cushman Wakefield, but they're focused on different areas. They're focused on creating pitch decks, and we do have resources and actually getting a lot better in terms of using social media here, but they're not exclusively focused on training brokers. So we changed that. We created a community. We publish 7 lists now of people who are doing exceptional things in social media, and you are a list maker, Mr. Griffiths. Proud to have you on the list. And because Napoleon said one time, I've discovered the most amazing thing, a man will die for a knot. And so by that, he meant recognition is a very powerful tool. And recognition allows us to hold up people who are doing things that are interesting. And it's almost a laboratory. You can go follow a Chad Griffiths or a Corey Davidson or any of the other people, the greats we've mentioned here, Bob Knackle, and see how they do it. But then there needed to be more. So I tell people it was an idea that led to a list that led to a summit that then led to a community. And the community that is formed now, coming into our 6th annual meeting next year, is amazing. People, when they come to the summit, it's invigorating. Everybody, they're not cliques. Everybody's on the same level. We have what I call an abundance mentality, where we're trying to share. And I don't care if you're with a competitor or not. The competitive issue is not the idea; it's the execution of the idea. So we share ideas widely. That's part of the values of the CREI Summit community. And I've seen people start podcasts, move different shops, get better splits, get bonused, get hired, get raised, get promoted. All those things just make my heart go pitter patter. So it's a growing and vibrant community, and we are focused on this, and the one thing and one thing only, and that is the use of digital tools to drive business development. Digital tools include social media, but they also include email. Every executive reads email all day long. How can we get better at that? They include what you're doing, and you've done a great job of establishing a podcast, but also how to be a podcast guest, how to be better at it, how to get invited to more podcasts, because that can spread your brand. And then finally, you mentioned it earlier, but the use of LLMs and AI, which are increasingly going to be important in our world. And I think about, with respect to that, this thing. A lot of us use AI to replace low payback activities, take notes, help you write the speech, all that sort of stuff. But I want to figure out how to use AI to augment high payback activity. And high payback activity for me is meeting with a prospect for the first time, or beginning a relationship with a prospect, or doing anything I can do to get hired. That's the most important. Making it rain is the most important thing in my job right now. Yes, keeping clients happy, all of that's important. But the penultimate thing is making it rain. And how can I use AI to do that better?
Hmm. So that's going to be a major topic in 2026.
Absolutely. We are 50% or more of the conference next year will be on the use of AI, and we are focused on shifting from what I call tools to tasks. So the talented team this year talked about some amazing tools, Topher Stevenson and others. There are great tools out there, but you and I and everybody listening doesn't really get compensated to know about the tools. They get paid for the performance of those tools. So, I don't really want to know necessarily the details of all these tools. John Cushman, the great John Cushman, told me one time, as a broker, you got to do three things: find them, mine them, and grind them. And it was kind of funny when he said it. But I think about the tools and those in connection with that. So, how do you use an AI tool to listen, to learn when someone might be ready to talk to you about your services? How do you use an AI tool in the sales process, that direct approach to get hired? What kind of research, what kind of deep thinking can it do to help you be better prepared for the pitch? And then how do you use an AI tool after the transaction is done to stay in touch and to become aware of activities that are happening in your now client? And more than Google alerts, I mean, a better approach to keep you in front of your clients.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I wish I could have made it to Palm Springs this year, but I just had too hectic of a fall travel schedule already. But
We
I
missed you.
am very much looking forward to Savannah in 2026. The dates on that again?
September 23rd, 24th, and 25th. And to learn more about it, you can go to CREI Summit.com. That stands for Commercial Real Estate Influencer, but more increasingly, it's Commercial Real Estate Innovator. We're sort of changing the paradigm. And, I know it's a consideration, so let's talk about it. The ticket cost this year in Southern California was expensive. It's $1,500 a ticket. Next year, I'm pleased to tell you, in part because of our wonderful sponsors and a lower cost of operating, we've lowered the ticket price to $999. Pretty approachable for any broker, even someone who's new in the business. And listen, you talk to people who have attended. Look at the media to see. You don't have to listen to me, but I commend it to you if you're a young or mid-career professional, even senior. I mean, there are plenty of senior people there. Everyone can learn something from the buffet of ideas and the great people that are in the room.
And touching on that as well, the 7 lists that you guys put out.
Mm-hmm.
If you're new into social media or new in the business, and those could be completely different people as well. But if you're new into either one of those and you just want to start getting some ideas, go to the lists that you guys publish on the website. And if you're
Yep.
trying to get onto X, go in and look at all the top people on X or LinkedIn or whatever your flavor is, because those are the people that have been recognized for what they've accomplished. There's a good roadmap on what they're doing that you could perhaps incorporate elements into your own plan. So I love it. I think everything you stand for, Ken, and having gotten to know you over the years, you've got a big fan north of the border in me, and
Thank
I'm
you.
very
Likewise.
much looking forward to continuing the relationship as well. One last thing, I know we got a couple minutes left. The book, just to tee this up, commercial real estate in general has lacked a lot of education in the form of books. When I started 20 years ago, there was very little available. And fast forward, even throughout my career, I've found that there hasn't been much at all. In this year alone, Alan Buchanan wrote a book, The Sequence,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
fantastic book.
Yep.
Amy Calladrino has written a book.
Yep.
There's another essay award that wrote one this year. Oh, Bob Nackles and Rod Sanamassimo have written a book. You're
Yep.
writing a book. We've gone from having not a whole lot of books to now having a great amount of information out there. Can you tell me a little bit more about? And you mentioned it earlier, but just if you anything that you could elaborate, so if people can look forward to your book, because I'll be a first customer even without knowing much about it.
Well, thank you. And I want to say for your audience, Chad wrote a great book called Industrialize, which you must buy. It will make a great Christmas gift.
Thank you for that.
And if you don't
Despite the
know,
bad reviews that I've made videos
yeah.
on.
So get Chad's book, and if you don't know who George Chu is, go to Chad's X profile. It is a hilarious thing that you've done, and I love the way you market your book. The real estate prescription is in final edit. In fact, I've got one thing I need to do after this, after we chat today, and then hopefully can release to the team. There'll be an audiobook version. You can buy it on any of the major channels and Amazon. And so the real estate prescription is designed to help someone understand our business, get into our business, and be successful in our business. It is just a passion project as well that I've been thinking about for a while. So the first section explains from my chair, I'm not an asset manager, I'm not a property manager, but from my chair, the commercial real estate world and what we do and how it's different from residential. As I said earlier in our discussion, the second is how to get hired. How do you get a meeting? How do you get in front of, whether you want a big shop or a small shop or a medium shop? How do you initially establish contact? What are the questions they're going to ask you? What is the hiring manager thinking about? And why don't they just hire people if it's commission only? Well, we talk about the thing called desk cost in the book. And then the third is, now that you've gotten your mentor, you found your team, you're ready to go. Well, your managing principal, your senior broker are going to give you a plan. And you asked earlier about business development. We have a plan as well. And the plan is not for everyone, but it is a plan to think about how you attack a market, how you attack a vertical like accounting or engineering, or you attack a radius. All of those are discussed in the book. And then how to develop a business development system. And two quick things, I'm watching time here, but number one, we come up with a point system. So during the week, you can determine if you've been successful. One of the biggest issues in our business is people don't know how they spent their time. You go home at the end of the week and you say to your spouse, partner, or friend, hey man, I had a great week. I worked my butt off. What'd you do? I don't know. I can't remember. So we have a point system that incentivizes you and focuses you on the things that you need to do to be successful. For example, reaching out to someone gets you 1 point, and let's say it's 100 points a week. Having a conversation with them or leaving a voicemail, maybe that's 5 points. Getting a meeting could be 20 points. Getting hired could be 50. So you can make your week if you get hired on 2 assignments. And here's the commitment that I ask you to make is, once you've achieved your point score, let's say it's Thursday at 2:00, take off Friday. That's the incentive to become successful. So there's a business development point system. And then I think the last thing I'll share is that there is a way to organize prospects. Without going too deeply into it, we think that the maximum number of prospects you ought to have is a big number. It would be 800, and they're graded A, B, and C. And there's a way that they get there. And the psychological game we play with ourselves is it's that you have to have a certain behavior as a prospect to be able to be an A. And if you're not, I can fire you down to a B. To give us some element of control. But I think as young brokers, there's so much going on. You're learning the market, you're learning your brokerage, you're learning the things that we talked about earlier. But how do you convert that energy into actually picking up the phone, not being terrified, getting a meeting and getting hired? And if you can do that thing, which is not simple, but it's also not the hardest thing in the world, you will change your career. You will supercharge your success. And when you are successful, your success blesses others, because when you earn a great income, not only is your family benefit, not only is your brokerage benefit and your team benefits, but your community. The guy that sells you the suit, that sells you the car, the maitre d' that sells you a dinner, everyone benefits when you are successful. And you have to believe in yourself and give yourself the tools to get there. And then you will achieve victory.
What an awesome way to end. Ken, I'm eagerly looking forward to that book coming out. I will be buying that for any new agent that I come across and be recommending it. I want to really thank you for your time on this. I don't know when we'll see each other next in person, but I look forward to whenever that is.
Chad, it's an honor to be on your air. I appreciate our friendship, and thank you for all you do for this community, the podcast, the book, and how you share, so selflessly of your many talents. So it's an honor to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken. Looking forward to seeing you next time.
Okay.